The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is iconic. Whether you love this game or are sick of hearing about it, it's pretty tough to ignore the massive footprint it's left on the world of gaming. So many franchises owe portions of their success to the bold strides this title took, and the fact that it's still so widely recognized decades after its release is a testament to its quality. But while I've experienced Link's time-bending epic dozens of times, it's only just hit me how seizing one single opportunity changed everything for Nintendo's Golden Goose. Hi there, my name is Daniel, and I mean, come on, you already know how creative this game is. Okay, so before we go any farther, I want to cover some expectations. This is easily one of the most talked about games ever, but I am well aware that for every fan who places it in their top 10, there's a critic who thinks it's overrated. And that's totally okay. This reflection is about my experience with a world that has meant so much to me throughout my life. So if you're looking for a hypercritical rant about a game that came out 2 decades ago, this might not be the video for you. So why do I love Ocarina of Time? Well, for starters, it was the first adventure I ever completed on my own. My brothers had helped me complete classics like Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country, but something about this fully explorable 3D puzzle box completely captured my heart as a toddler. There was so much to do. The cutscenes were epic, the music was magical, the environments and dungeons were all so unique, and it felt amazing to overcome the challenges I was faced with. Little did I know, however, that Link's glorious polygonal model had gone through one heck of a journey before it reached my TV in 1998. I had no idea that there had been 4 other Zelda adventures before this one, or that series fans had been waiting 5 whole years since the last one released. And y'all, a ton of stuff happened during that time that, quite frankly, have already been covered extensively in other videos. Which is why today, we're not talking about the 64 disk drive, or a Zelda, or the Unicorn Fountain. No, I want to focus on the game we got, and specifically, I'll be filtering our discussion through Ocarina's single most crucial element, which has fascinated me ever since my 3-year-old hands first clasped around that spaceship of a controller. It's a shift in design so simple yet so consequential that it bleeds into every aspect of the game. I'm talking about the crown jewel of 64-bit gaming, the third dimension. Similar to Mario, The Legend of Zelda was entering uncharted territory with the Nintendo 64. The third dimension came with a wealth of exciting possibilities, sure, but it also created a ton of new challenges as well. Instead of simply using sprites and tiles, developers now had loads of 3D models to worry about. These would require a lot more memory to render, and their animations would need to be significantly more fluid so as to not break immersion. The standard for realism was increasing, so Nintendo had to step up their game as well. A couple frames per animation would have sufficed back then, but it wasn't going to cut it here. And it wasn't like the Zelda team could just study how Super Mario 64 did it either. The two were being developed at the same time, and while they did certainly share a few ideas, mechanics, and even team members, geez, these guys are machines. These are just 2 completely different types of games if we're being honest. As a platformer, Super Mario 64 was more concerned with movement than anything else. But Zelda's all about puzzles. And there's combat to worry about. And Link's also got all these items, each with specific mechanics that would need to be translated into 3D. And that's not even to mention Zelda's heavier emphasis on story. The first few titles had to be pretty limited in their presentation, but with the innovation of the digital camera, cutscenes could now be more cinematic than ever before. Seriously, I still get chills every time I say goodbye to Saria, pull the Master Sword from its pedestal, and oh my goodness, approaching the Demon King himself while he plays his own freaking theme song? Legendary. And if you ask me, the spectacle and wonder of this adventure are best experienced today, at least for the most part, with the 3DS remake that launched back in 2011. Now hear me out, because I have caveats. Yes, it's on a handheld, not on a big screen. Yes, the brighter environments do sometimes hurt the tone of certain scenes. And yes, Link looks like he's running in slow motion in this version. But I'm not a speedrunner or a critic, just a loyal fan who loves the artistic vision set out by the original. And I personally love how the 3DS remake brings that vision to life. Now when it comes to Ocarina's larger story beats, I wouldn't exactly call them original. The hero chosen by destiny must collect 3 spiritual stones to be worthy of the Master Sword. But after the conflict goes much deeper than he initially thought, this hero must traverse across time while awakening the 7 sages to help him defeat the Demon King. Sound familiar to anyone? Let's see here, just ad-lib a few key terms, and boom, A Link to the Past. Now I've heard this argument leveraged against the game as an indictment against its creativity, and I just gotta say, I don't agree. I mean, sure, the story's generic, and it's been used before. But while Link to the Past might be more original in this regard, that game wasn't responsible for ushering in a new era of gaming. Ocarina of Time had a hefty weight of expectations placed upon its shoulders, so I'm not at all surprised that its writers chose to stick with a narrative formula they were familiar with. And honestly, you might not have even noticed these similarities until I pointed them out, because they're presented completely differently. The cinematic storytelling Nintendo brings to the table here just wasn't possible back on the Super Nintendo. And between the shot composition, dialogue, and sound design, each scene is given a unique identity within the game's larger narrative structure. 3D wasn't just an obstacle for Ocarina's team, it was an asset that allowed them to connect with players in new ways. And when it comes to connecting with an on-screen character, there aren't many things as crucial as how that character interacts with the world. In previous Zelda games, our view was aerial and removed. Our perspective was constant, regardless of where Link was facing, and we could see quite a lot in every direction around him. In Ocarina of Time, that aerial camera gets pulled in, and instead of looking down on Link and his surroundings, we're now gazing over his shoulder. This is a more intimate angle that connects us with our hero, but it does come with limitations. For the most part, we can only see what Link sees, meaning we could potentially miss a puzzle solution or a sneaky enemy if we're not careful. This perspective shift creates new gameplay scenarios that simply didn't exist with Zelda's old viewing angles. No longer can you take in all of an area's features simply by virtue of being in that room. You have to look around. But when an enemy attacks, the time for sightseeing is over. Now, combat in a 3D space is an easy thing to take for granted today, but I can assure you that no one had this figured out back in the mid-90s. Developers were giving it their best shot, but especially before free camera movement was a regular feature, early 3D titles just had a tough time implementing a combat system that felt intuitive and focused, which is why it's unreal to see the Zelda team absolutely crush it on their first try. Just like with Mario's jump, the third dimension has made Link's iconic sword and shield exponentially more expressive. He can now slice vertically, horizontally, stab, crouch stab, jump strike, and of course, spin attack. And he can do all of this between backflips and side hops. Wonderful. But I've yet to mention perhaps the most important innovation Ocarina brought to 3D gaming. You see this little guy? This is how our good friend Navi lets us know that we're locked onto a target. The game originally dubbed it Z targeting, since that's the button on the 64 controller that triggered it. Wow, creative name there. But I mean, it's a lock-on system. Just like this and this. Well, guess what? No one did this before Ocarina of Time. Well, games like Star Fox did, but I'm talking boots on the ground adventure games like this. And hey, Star Fox is here too. And while Ocarina certainly uses Z targeting for combat, the system really is the lens through which you'll be seeing the entire world throughout this adventure. Talking to people, reading signs, destroying signs, interacting with points of interest, all of it uses this one little feature. Now, I totally understand criticisms about how systems like this can break immersion and jerk the game's perspective around. But while it may not be perfect, I personally appreciate how this simple mechanic elegantly reins in the player's focus and filters a world of stimuli down to a single object. Nintendo recognized how new 3D environments were for gamers to navigate at the time, and although their guidance can be a little heavy-handed at times, their intentionality with this system allows Hyrule to feel full of life without overwhelming players too much. And on that note, we gotta talk about Ocarina's world design, because while we're back in Hyrule from our brief vacation on Koholint Island, 7 years has brought a lot of change to the kingdom. A Link to the Past map was essentially a giant labyrinth of interconnecting paths, with the only noticeable loading zones occurring when you enter a building. After its three-dimensional facelift, however, Hyrule's priorities have changed. The loads of 3D models now require loading zones between pretty much every area, creating a sense of separation between the various ecosystems of Hyrule. But the Zelda team tries to offset this technological limitation by making each individual area feel vast and explorable. And in most cases, I would say they're successful. Hyrule feels kind of a tough one, because while the music is epic and riding a horse feels amazing, there's honestly nothing to do here. Sure, it feels vast, but that space also needs to be filled with meaningful content, which I feel they captured better with the series' next game. Limitations aside though, I am genuinely blown away by how unique and memorable each of Ocarina's environments are. And nowhere is this more true than the game's dungeons. A Link to the Past introduced us to the varied potential of dungeons, and Link's Awakening gave us a more streamlined approach to their progression. But Ocarina takes us even one step further by giving these levels a real space in the game's world. From these sweeping shots that greet you, to the imaginative puzzles of each temple, all the way to each iconic set-piece battle, this game's dungeons transport me every time I experience them. The Great Deku Tree is, of course, a tree, and the developers have used their newfangled Z-axis to add real verticality to this trunk section. Then Lord Jabu Jabu chomps you up, and of course his insides are as disgusting as you would assume the inside of a fish would be. These organic environments are then contrasted with the man-made temples you explore as an adult, which feel like cultural artifacts designed with a variety of purposes. The Forest Temple feels like a haunted mansion, especially with its chilling music and a labyrinthine design, whereas the Spirit Temple feels designed for worship. The Fire Temple acts as a prison for these Gorons, and the Shadow Temple plunges you deep into the catacombs of Hyrule's bloody history. And then there's the Water Temple, which is accented by East Asian architecture and is honestly better than you remember. Seriously, play it on the 3DS, it's better there. Except Morpha. Bad boss. Not only is each dungeon wholly unique from the others in its puzzles and aesthetics, the way they usher players from simplicity to complexity over the course of the whole adventure is nothing short of masterful. The child portion of your quest is entirely linear, with each dungeon ramping up the challenge a notch or two. But while Sheik does give you a preferred route for the game's second half, you actually do have some options in how you progress. And it's really only the Shadow Temple that's gated off by a cutscene here. The rest are dictated by Link's items, and this adventure comes with a good batch of them. We've got some new friends here, like the Spazzy Bomb Shoes, the Lens of Truth, and the ridiculously broken Deku Nuts. But kinda like the narrative, a large portion of Link's inventory this time around is borrowed from A Link to the Past. Of course you've got your Zelda staples, and our magic spells are back as well, this time joined by some fun elemental arrows. But while many of the items themselves are familiar, our new three-dimensional perspective breathes new life into their implementation. Your projectile-based items bring you into this first-person perspective, bombs now have verticality to their arcs, and the Megaton Hammer now packs one heck of a punch as you play the world's most intense game of whack-a-mole. And can I hear some love for the Ocarina of Time itself? This little flute has gotten one heck of an upgrade since we saw it last, as it now connects a handful of mechanics to some catchy tunes that you play yourself. Okay, can it be cumbersome to play the same songs over and over again? Sure. But y'all, the Ocarina is freaking awesome. Seriously, you've got gameplay, narrative, and world building, all wrapped up in some of the most memorable melodies in gaming. It is, and always has been, one of the most magical experiences I've ever had in a video game. The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time has been called a classic, a pioneer, and a masterpiece. But to me, it will always be my first and most special adventure in gaming. But even after dozens of playthroughs on a handful of platforms, I had no idea just how massive of a leap this game took in its design. Does Ocarina play it safe in some regards? Sure, but it does so in order to make big plays in the areas that I would argue truly matter. By seizing the opportunities provided by 3D, Ocarina enlivened its narrative, gameplay mechanics, and world building. This adventure understands the heart of Zelda and uses the new tools at its disposal to deliver that heart to a new generation of gamers. Ocarina is a milestone for video games and a cornerstone for the Zelda series, but for me, it honestly just feels like home. What are some of the milestones in my own life? Moments I look back on where everything changed. I think about graduating high school, the day I became a Christian, and the moment I realized I had found the woman I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. Of course, not all the milestones are positive, but as my brain, hands, and voice come together to communicate these words right now, I can't help but be grateful for my personal journey, because it's special, and so is yours. Thanks so much for watching. This episode goes out to my friend and brother, Matty B. You have such an incredible heart and passion for people, Matt. And while it breaks my heart to see the pain you've walked through, I'm grateful for the honor of walking alongside you. Love you, brother, and I'm praying for you every day. And as for the rest of you friends, I want you to know that you're loved, you're valuable, and you are creative. God bless y'all. Have a great day.